been told that you are too sensitive? Even the smallest of things make you emotional. You get very touchy and you take a lot of things personally. Now, back in the day, this used to be considered a form of emotional abuse. And these days, yes, it is still to an extent. However, it is also a very good way for people to give you feedback, and also you learn something about yourself. So just being sensitive doesn't innately make you a weak person. And in many ways, it can... I certainly was one of them growing as a child. And in many ways, I still am very sensitive. However, what I have done as an individual is really harness the power and the advantage of being a sensitive person and leveraged it in a very positive way in my career and otherwise. And you can do the same as a healthcare professional. So in this video, we're going to cover how being sensitive is a good thing and a very positive attribute for you to be a good healthcare professional. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me every week, as you always do. Your support and your engagement means the world to me. For those who don't know me, my name is Shweta. I'm the founder of Healthy Dynamics. We are a coaching practice that helps healthcare professionals from English as a second language backgrounds become more empathetic, collaborative, influential, and impactful communicators, becoming better communicators, and thereby being able to relate and connect better with their patients, leave them with positive experience, and in turn receive better reviews, feedback, and referrals. So if you are from a non-English speaking background or a country, so say for example you may be someone from Germany or Belgium or the Netherlands or from Costa Rica or from the Middle East, or say even the Quebec province of Canada, regardless of where you're from, if English is not your first language, you work in healthcare day in and out, and you're working with patients all the time, and you want to learn not just how to improve your English language, but also how to communicate better with your patients and inevitably connect with them as a result of that, you've absolutely come to the right place. So like I mentioned in the very beginning of the video, we're going to be talking about the concept of sensitivity. And this is something that is personally very close to my heart. So I was always a very sensitive child. I used to cry at the drop of a hat over the smallest of things. And I remember one of my gym teachers back in the day in my primary school literally used to call me Crybaby. That was a nickname that he had given me, because I would cry about everything. I would take everything personally. Even these days, sometimes when I am speaking just casually with friends and family members and they say something jokingly, I tend to take a lot of those things quite personally and get quite upset over it. And I have to sometimes tell them that this hurt me and this upset me. And therefore they know that there are some things, certain boundaries with me that they should not cross. Now that doesn't mean that I can't take a joke. That's not the point. But I suppose for me, there are certain things, there are certain triggers where I get upset very, very quickly and easily. And there are a lot of people like that in this world who have the same attributes and qualities as me. And if you remember growing up, in households where your parents may have criticized you and told you, oh, you're being too sensitive, or you're being too emotional, or you're overreacting, you're taking things too personally, or too touchy. These are the things that I heard and still hear from my parents when I was growing up and even till date. However, for me, in many ways, I have always thought of being sensitive as a major superpower. So if you talk about from a non-healthcare perspective, just in my extended family, I have been one of the very few people who has broken a lot of the generational curses and things that everyone else in the family have done, and I have gone on to do something completely different. Now, I was one of the few people in my extended family who has been very vocal about mental health, and that is to do with the fact that I have experienced it and I'm sensitive about it, and I can always also tell people that these things should not be discussed in a family setting or anywhere, because it's going to hurt the other person. And because family members do take each other for granted quite a lot. And I remember my grandmother, back in the day, she used to tell my cousin sister, who's now 34, when she was a little kid, that when she gets married, this is going to happen or that's going to happen. And I used to tell my grandmother that, you don't know at this point whether she wants to get married or not. So please don't bring that up. So that's just one of the many examples. Now, it didn't hurt my cousin sister as much because she's a lot more easygoing and thick-skinned than I am. Whereas people know that they can't make jokes about that like that with me. Never. So, but in many ways, I think me being sensitive and me being aware really brought to the forefront in my extended family a lot of the things that were very much the elephant in the room, and a lot of the things that were very, very hush-hush. So in many ways, I have broken the cycle and brought out a lot of topics that were very tabooed back in the day and made them more normalized and made people more vocal and understanding of them. These are some of the many ways in which being a sensitive person can really be to your advantage. So how can we now apply this analogy if you are working as a healthcare professional? So there are many, many different ways in which sensitivity can really, really work in your favor when you are trying to connect better with your patients, getting to know them, and really understand where they're coming from. Now, before I get into that, I just wanted to let you know that just because someone is sensitive, I'm also combining that with the fact that there are also people who are open to being held accountable. So you can't say that I'm sensitive about everything and you can't say anything towards me. So because if my response is going to upset some other people, and if they give you feedback and you don't take it well, I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people who are by nature quite sensitive, but also self-aware and also want to be held accountable and like doing so. So empathy and sensitivity go hand in hand. And that is something that we have talked about, or I have discussed a lot on my content over here and on LinkedIn. So if you are sensitive, you are more than likely more understanding and aware of how your patient will be feeling at any given point in time with their illnesses, with their challenges, and with their conditions. A very recent example I used in last week's video was my anxiety and nervousness about going into surgery, and how my sensitivity was handled really well by the healthcare professionals who operated on me and who took care of me after the surgery. So again, because they mastered that, they did not hold my sensitivity and my anxiety against me. They were very emotionally intelligent and they were very aware of how I was feeling, and they really reassured me and held my hand and supported me and empowered me through the process. And being a sensitive and an emotionally intelligent person can absolutely take you a very long way in building and developing empathy and a better understanding of where your patient is coming from. And this again ties very well with listening. So empathetic listening, and this is very similar to active listening, means you're not just hearing what the words that someone else is saying, but also the feelings behind them. Now, for example, my client Farida, who has been working with me for the past couple of months, she has always said to me that, whenever she treats a Middle Eastern patient, they come into her consultations, and she has to bring up the fact that surgery is required for the challenge that they are having. They pretty much go into like a little bit of a panic mode. And, but Farida is very good at understanding why they may be nervous about surgery of the eye or whatever the part of the body is. She listens to their concerns very, very well, and also is able to reassure them and empower them in the process. And that way, she's acknowledging their fear and uncertainty, and she's able to explain the steps of the surgery and everything else in a much more gentle and understanding manner, easing the patient's anxiety. Now, we all know that action speaks louder than words. So sensitivity isn't just about what you say, but how you say it. And this is very closely linked to your non-verbal cues, which can really either reinforce or undermine your message of care. And I have seen this very, very often amongst veterinarians. So when my last dog, when she had to be euthanized, I remember the amount of sensitivity and compassion and kindness that the veterinary staff showed to us when it was her time to go. And they were very, very aware of how, because they obviously see this all the time, they were aware of how pet owners feel when their dog is almost towards the end of its life. So they sort of made sure that all the formalities like paying and the payment and everything was taken care of at the beginning. And once the procedure was done, they didn't say anything to us. They didn't come and sort of reassure us, but they were all just making eye contact, and it was sort of telling us that we understand your pain and we know where you're coming from. Because at that point, we did not want to be bothered, that we didn't want someone coming and hugging us or holding us or anything like that. They were very aware of that, and they were able to help us out accordingly. Similarly, if there are, say, if there is an owner who's very, very broken and they will need some more of a physical sort of reassurance, which I'm sure veterinary staff, I've seen videos of them provide that. So they are amazing at what they do. So that those non-verbal gestures really mean the world. And a lot of veterinary staff will actually also send cards of condolences. My friend Michelle's cat, who passed away last year, she also received one from her vet clinic when she was put down. So these gestures can absolutely go a long way. And even though veterinarians see this all the time in their jobs, the fact that they really show the height of kindness and compassion during the most vulnerable times of a pet owner's life, and indeed the pet's life, is just absolutely remarkable, and we can absolutely learn so many things from them. Similarly, another gesture could be offering a tissue, like a pat on the shoulder, and even sitting down with the patient and listening to what they're saying. I've mentioned this many times, and that can absolutely go a long way into demonstrating that you are being sensitive not just towards your needs, but most importantly, the needs of your patients. Now, how can you integrate sensitivity into your practice? So some of the things and tips that I would suggest are start with small changes. Now, not everyone is naturally sensitive, and there's nothing wrong in that. But what you can do is really practice your core skills like active listening and empathy in every interaction, and make sure that you're pausing and reflecting after every consultation and getting a sense of what the patient is really saying and where they're coming from. As well as that, also equally important is the phrasing that you use has to demonstrate empathy and sensitivity as well. So instead of using just a generic, like a verbatim standard response, you can use more things like, I can see where you're coming from. I understand that this must be a challenging time for you, but also reassure them that you're going to help them get through it together. Being very mindful of your presence. So even in, say, a busy environment, it's important to take a deep breath and center yourself before every patient interaction. So if you are calm and if you are, in control, and your presence can really speak volumes, and it sets the tone for the entire consultation. And most importantly, it's very important for you to take a moment to reflect on what went well and where you could have improved. And it's just like any other core skill that I talk about, like active listening and empathy. It is a muscle that you build with time, practice, and reflection. So just to conclude, sensitivity is not a sign of weakness. It's a superpower that really allows you to connect, comfort, and truly care for your patient. And it transforms the clinical experience into a human one, and in doing so, builds trust, fosters healing, and creates lasting relationships in your patients. So I challenge you today, in your next patient interaction, focus on being fully present, listening deeply and intently, and expressing genuine empathy through both your words and actions, and notice the difference that it makes with the relationship that you have with your patients. To stay tuned for more content like this, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Leave this video a like and leave your thoughts, comments, and feedback in the comment section below. And as always, thank you very much for your time, attention, and presence, and I will see you next week.